Hello and welcome back to the Chattercade podcast, where I discuss media in the forms of reviews and topical-based discussions. I'm your host, Dragon King Thomas Hughes, and today we're talking about a brand new film that came out in the UK last week. Obviously, by the time this episode actually goes out, it'll be released in America and majority of other countries. And that is the festive action comedy Red One, which obviously stars Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Chris Evans, and J.K. Simmons as Santa Claus. Obviously, this is, as I said, a brand new one. Obviously, came out. Obviously, all the reviews came out for it pretty much last week. Obviously, when the UK and most international regions got this movie, and the reviews critically were like really bad. I mean, the Rotten Tomato overall score last time I saw was about 32%, which is terrible. So my mindset was like, is this going to be bad, or is this going to be another case of what I've seen is different to what the critics are clearly seen? And in all honest truth, it is that option. It is that it's the case of I'm wondering what movie the critics have been watching to get this level of bad reviews out of it. It's generally not a bad movie. It's actually really entertaining. It's one of those by the books, play it safe action comedy-esque movies. Like there's bits of comedy, but it's more focused on the action side of it. Obviously, the comedy mainly coming from Chris Evans' character, and as I say, it's a very by the books safe movie, and I'm guessing that's why critics hated it. Because they're not watching it like, you know, your average normal obviously watcher would watch it. They're watching it trying to like see how great could this movie like go on to win awards and shit like that. And I mean, when they're fucking announced it, you're gonna obviously, especially the concepts, right? It's like it's more than likely going to be your run of the mill Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson movie. Which is never going to be like this massive Oscar contender or award contender. It might be like contender like the Kids' Choice Awards or like the MTV Movie Awards, one of these type of movie slash media review, obviously award shows. It's probably going to be one of the ones that you probably find crop up one of them rather than they say like your Oscars, your BAFTAs, and Golden Globes. I think the other one is like I think off the top of my head like. It's obviously it's not going to be for one of them. It's going to be more for one of those ones. So I definitely felt like this is one that's going to be better with the audiences. I don't think it's going to do too well at the box office. I'm going to be honest. I think obviously the negative reviews from the critics is probably going to kill this off entirely. That and the fact that there's a lot of other films coming out around. Obviously at this point, I mean, obviously Gladiator 2 is pretty much right around the corner. I'm pretty certain it's actually out the same day as this in America, so it's just a case of I'm pretty certain that's probably gonna kill it. I know in the UK they dropped it. I think it was a Wednesday. Like, there are a couple of showings, but actually, yeah, it was Wednesday. Yeah, they dropped it obviously last Wednesday. But the problem is that had competition from obviously a English film, which obviously was the Paddington and Prue movie, that obviously Paddington 3. Obviously, that had that competition, so obviously that did really well. I think that was like number one at the UK box office last weekend, which isn't surprising because it's a fucking amazing movie. And obviously it's already got a fan base because of the two previous movies, especially the last one, which obviously a lot of people say is like one of the greatest movies. I mean, I'm pretty certain it isn't it, unlike Rotten Tomatoes, like one of the highest rated movies of all time or something stupid like that. Is it Rotten Tomatoes or is it IMDb? It was on one of them. I'm pretty certain it was like the highest rated critically and audience. I could be wrong. I think it might be critically of all time. So obviously that's already got a fan base that's going to drag people obviously to watch the third one, which is obviously what it did in the UK. We're saying in the States it's not until like next year. So it's mainly just UK. I'm guessing international markets. Just don't quote me on that because I'm not too sure. Obviously, that already would already win automatically. obviously with this movie, this one's going more for obviously star power. Obviously he's going to try and drag you in with, let's say, obviously The Rock, Chris Evans, Lucy Liu, J.K. Simmons. Trying to remember some other cast members. Personally, I'd say they're the biggest ones, so I'm going to stick with them. Obviously, it's going to draw you in. It's going to try and draw you in on that, and also the fact that the guy directing it is the same guy who directed the last two Jumanji movies, which also starred The Rock. So it's going to try and drag you in on those factors. But I definitely still find it weird that it's obviously. They do it a lot. I noticed that they did it for the Grinch as well, the animated one. Obviously, they dropped it in November, not December. I feel like this might have suited better for being a December movie, because I feel like that straight away kills some of the momentum of people going to watch it, because it's weird placement. It's not even like late November; it's early November. I think in terms of The Rock, he probably should have switched the two movies around, obviously, because he got Moana at the end of the month. He probably should have said, let's release that early and release this one late, because at least then going into December, you might drag that audience that haven't seen it yet and go, well, it's Christmas time then, let's go and watch this Christmas movie. And I feel like for them releasing it in November, it does kind of kill the vibe a bit, because it definitely was weird watching a Christmas film in November. I'm someone who can only physically watch them in December. Obviously, in this case, exceptions were made because of it not being out in December. So, yeah, that's definitely a weird one. But I think it's like a film overall. It is a really entertaining film. The comedy is pretty decent. The action's good. The chemistry between The Rock and obviously Chris Evans is really good, because obviously The Rock is just, well, he's just playing The Rock, isn't he? He's like, same as in every fucking movie he's in. But obviously that, to me, makes sense for this movie, because obviously he's meant to be the character that's actually super serious, because his job is obviously keeping Santa safe, and obviously when he gets kidnapped, obviously he's then hunting for him to get him back, so he kind of has to be serious. And I feel like, yeah, it would have been fine if he obviously was a bit more comedic, but I feel like him just like being this straight-faced, super serious, essentially security guard, it makes sense him being how he is, and that's why it kind of works. And when you got Chris Evans, who's someone who's not taking the job seriously, he's kind of, well, he's being paid to obviously attract Santa down, because obviously it's his fault to an extent. Obviously that he was being kidnapped, so obviously he's being paid by government agents to go and track him down. So it makes sense that he'd still probably wouldn't take it seriously, because to be fair, the whole point of his character for this film is he's growing as a human. Obviously, at the start, he's notoriously on the naughty list. I think it's like level 4 naughty list or something like that. So obviously, he's pretty bad, obviously, because of obviously he's hacking stuff, obviously stealing stuff. He's just kind of a jerk. I mean, not really a spoiler, but obviously he steals like a lollipop from a baby. That there, well, toddler technically. That there shows like how much of a jerk he is, and obviously the whole point of this film for him is showing him growing, and becoming a bit more nicer as he's going along. So it makes sense then, as say, him being a more stupid character. As Hayden said, obviously The Rock basically played the character as, well, the Rock, and Chris Evans played the character as if he was Johnny Storm from Fantastic Four. He's goofy, he's stupid. Yeah, he has a few serious moments, especially towards the back end of the movie. But majority of the movie, he's basically just trying to keep you entertained, trying to, as Hayden said, carry the movie, which is what he does. He carries the movie because of the fact that he's got a personality and not just, straight-faced, playing the same character he plays in every film. But, as I say, I think what else this movie has going for it as well, obviously its digital effects are really good. I think, I said to Hayden, there's 95% of the VFX of this movie are actually really solid. There's obviously the polar bear is really cool. The snowmen are really cool. I mean, the North Pole looks really good. But then there's this 5% that is a bit dicey, and it's mainly during these North Pole sequences, specifically the action sequences. But as when I was discussing it with Hayden, we was on about it, it was probably more the case of those sequences, because there's so much going on with CGI. They put so much into it. It's always, especially the action part of it, it's always going to probably look a little bit janky. And I found it did at a couple of points. It generally looked like a cutscene from like a video game or something. It didn't look great, but it didn't fully like take me out of the movie. It's just one of those ones where, a bit like, obviously we always point this one out. Obviously, Infinity War with the Hulkbuster armor with obviously Mark Ruffalo's head in it. It's one of those sort of moments where it's just one you're like, like you kind of like you know it's dicey, but you can kind of let it slide because the rest of the movie is decent. It's just those moments. And so for me, there's just two moments particularly that kind of make me go, but the rest of the CGI, so there's like the 95% of the CGI is spot on. It is generally really good. I think what this does better though is its practical effects, particularly obviously its mythological creatures, i.e. Krampus and his cronies. The practical on them is so fucking good. It is generally really, really good. You can understand why this movie's got a big budget. Well, that and 50 million of it went to The Rock just in general. So yeah, 200 million before the inflations from him pissing in bottles and shit like that. You can understand why this movie's got a high budget, because they say all these VFX, the star power in it, the practical effects. You can understand why it's got a big budget. And so, as far as Christmas movies goes, yeah, it's not like an all-time classic Christmas movie, like Muppets Christmas Carol or Home Alone or obviously I'm not gonna say Die Hard. Die Hard's set at Christmas time, but I can watch that anytime, so I know it's a Christmas movie, but I can understand the arguments towards it. Gremlins would be the one I go for. It's not one of those ones, but it's better than some of these other ones we've had over the years. I think I said to Hayden, for me, it kind of reminds me, it gave me the same feel I had from the Kurt Russell Santa Claus ones, obviously the Christmas Chronicles. Gave me that sort of same feel. I had a fun time with it, and I'd definitely probably watch it again towards Christmas. And I'm hoping they do drop it on digital around Christmas time, because I feel like it'd probably make a bit more of its money back. So I don't think it's going to do too well at the box office, I say, because I feel like the reviews from the critics have pretty killed its momentum straight away. Unless people want to check it out to see if it is as bad as they said it is. But I feel like because of obviously those reviews and the fact that these other films are coming out quite quick and fast this month, it's not going to do as great. And I'm pretty certain it's like, I'll double check, but I'm pretty certain it's like opening weekend from its international market. It didn't do like a really good haul. Let me just check. It made 26.5 million according to the internet. From its first weekend in most international markets, which isn't the best, because obviously the international markets is what makes up the majority of its grossing. But I think what's also killed the fact that obviously White's not done well at box office. Well, not just the reviews. Obviously, I saw that Venom's still like making some money. I mean, it's about 400 million now overall. But that's still making quite a bit of money at international markets. So I feel like that's also not helping, because people are going to still check that out. So I say it might be one of the ones where if this stays in cinema a few weeks, it might keep raking in a little bits of money, but I don't think it's going to be like what they had hoped for. I don't think it's going to make its money back, basically. I feel like it's probably going to be, unless it does well this weekend. If it doesn't do well this weekend, I feel like it's definitely going to get labelled as a box office bomb, because as I say, it's got 250 million budget behind it, plus I think it went up even more because of all those the delays and just other factors in general. I don't know what it went up to in the end, but obviously its break-even point's probably going to be ridiculous now. So I don't think it's going to break even. As I say, I reckon it will bomb at the box office. and it will be obviously one of the obviously quite a few that we've had this year that are very underperformed. But as I say, there's many factors to why, but I just think as a film overall, I didn't have a bad time with it. I had fun with it. I say visually it's good, story's decent, the acting's good. I definitely like J.K. Simmons as Santa Claus. I wish there was more of him in it, but obviously there's not going to be, for the fact that the whole point of the movie is, well, he's been kidnapped, so there's always going to be less of him, which is a shame because I fucking love J.K. Simmons. But what I love with his rendition of this is that it's not this, you run the mill, fat Santa. It's, he's muscly, he's fucking jacked. I mean, he's jacked in real life for his age, which is ridiculous. And I like the reason in this movie why he's jacked, because obviously, as I say, without spoiling anything really, obviously one of the last bits you get towards the end of the movie is seeing the, obviously, present delivery, how it actually works in this universe, and how they do it. Obviously, it's very athletic compared to, say, if you look at, I'm trying to think of, like, I think it's Tim Allen's Santa Claus, and I'm pretty sure you saw in Kurt Russell's. Obviously, most of the time they just shoot down the chimney. Obviously, the magic sort of adjusts the chimney to allow them to go through it and stuff like that. Whereas this, it's more of not just magic, like technology as well. And I say the fact that he's built really hench as well, for the fact that he can just run across rooftops and fucking zip line and fucking bungee jump into and whatnot. And then obviously got the technology side of it, which helps him actually physically get into these properties. So I do like their interpretation of Santa and how obviously he delivers the stuff. And I like the fact as well that obviously there's like this government agency that actually knows all about him. They actually work side by side with him to obviously help him out and whatnot. That's something different as well, because most of the time, the idea of obviously Santa and a lot of they're doing movies a lot of times, and obviously what the idea is obviously meant to be in reality is that obviously it's no one really knows where he is exactly, obviously apart from North Pole, but the idea of no one's ever seen him, he's always elusive. But I like the fact that this is the idea of no, there actually are a specific organization that knows exactly everything about him, how to get to him, how to contact him, to make sure Christmas runs smoothly. And I think that's pretty cool. I think that was kind of interesting. What an interesting take on it. I like the take on obviously the North Pole and this. The idea was like a massive dome around it to obviously shield them from obviously sonars and basically just the prying eyes. So I thought that was quite interesting, and I do like the Krampus part of this as well. There's some obviously really good music involved in that. Obviously, there's some decent comedy as well. The slap fights they have, especially when he slaps the Rock in the face, and he's like, "He just slapped the shit out of me." That was pretty funny, especially because he does look fucked afterwards. He looked like he'd just been slapped in the face by a giant goat man, which he was. But I'd say I like his little place, obviously, which was in Germany, which is very similar to obviously the North Pole in the sense that obviously it's surrounded by some sort of obviously dome that you can't actually see, and obviously there's obviously, as most is, there's a feud between him and obviously Santa, which is obviously why they're separate and not dealing with each other. And obviously they have like some sort of treaty which stops them actually from physically going to each other's homes, i.e. obviously North Pole and obviously this place in Germany. Obviously there's like some sort of treaty that prevents them from going there. So I thought that was all pretty cool. Obviously the villain, interesting villain. I like the idea it's like a witch. That's pretty cool. And like I said, I like there's two forms to it as well. She's got obviously a normal looking form, and then she's got like this giant ogre looking form, that had a relationship with Krampus at one point, which is quite funny. There's later some humorous lines from Krampus towards her. But I'm still 50-50 on the casting choice. I'm guessing, obviously, because they cast the actress who plays Sabrina the Teenage Witch in the, obviously, modern Sabrina series. And, obviously, that's quite humorous for the fact that she played a witch in that, and, obviously, she's a witch in this. I thought that was quite a humorous, obviously, casting choice. But at the same time, it's like, I don't really see her as this menacing villain. But, obviously, if you look at it in the sense of, she's not meant to be menacing until she becomes, obviously, her true form, this giant fucking monster. If you look at that, then okay, the casting kind of makes sense because she doesn't look scary, she doesn't look menacing, she just looks normal. So you can kind of understand, obviously, why the casting choice. But I don't know. I think Hayden said obviously they could have gone for someone like Tilda Swinton. Again, a Joko, she's played a witch before, and obviously she kind of just suit like a more menacing character rather than this much younger actress that has like, obviously her character has loads of like sons, so they all keep calling her mom, and it is weird. It's just weird because obviously they're all like grown ass men. It is, I don't know. It's one of those ones where I'm 50-50. I don't hate the casting, but I love the casting. It's one of those ones where it's just like, it's my weak point for the movie. So other than that, it's a fun time. I think if I was to give this a rating out of 10, I generally would give it something around 8.8ish. I'm debating to go lower than that, but at the moment I'll say 8.8. But my mind's somewhere between like 8.5 and 8.8. But at the moment I'll say 8.8 just as a starting point, and I can just work on that through rewatches. But yeah, I just generally, I don't know what film critics have watched to give a combined total of 32%. I'm generally interested to see though the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes and all that, because if obviously this does well on the audience side, then it's very clear that this movie is fully designed for an audience, which I think it was from the get-go. This type of movie isn't going to be designed for critics. It's not going to be like, for example, Joker 1. I'm not going to say Joker 2 because that was bashed by critics and audience. But the first Joker, that was a movie generally just sort of designed for a critical point of view to get awards. Whereas this, it's a fun action comedy. It's going to be designed more for an audience, an actual group of people that can just shut their brains down and enjoy what they're seeing. Whereas critics, they're not going to shut their brains down because they're going to be dissecting a movie entirely and be like, no, don't like that, or like that. So it's very clear that this movie is more like probably going to be designed for the ones that can shut the brains off and just enjoy. So I generally would be interested to see the audience score, because I know obviously it won't come out until it's been released in the US. So obviously when this episode goes out, I'll actually know what the audience score is for this movie. But as I say, at the moment, it's just blank because it's just been released internationally, and Rotten Tomatoes only releases the audience score when it's had a US release. But yeah, so I'm interested to see where that's at. But yeah, obviously, if you've seen Red One, put your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed it, if you didn't enjoy it, what you would have preferred them to do in this movie, and what they actually did, and obviously what you think they could have done to improve the movie overall. And yeah, I think that just covers everything. So obviously you can check out the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Audible, etc. And yeah, obviously I kind of wasn't. This is kind of like a last minute one for me near enough. This episode is. I was like, if I was to do anything, it would be that, because I haven't had a chance yet to sit down and do a new episode. And I was kind of like, if I do anything, it would be on Red One because I've just seen it, and I've got enough memory of the movie to cover it. So I was just like, do I do it though? Because I'm at this point now. My energy level is 0, and I'm running out of steam. So I was kind of like, do I do it? Do I not? And I was like, I'm not missing the week. I keep missing weeks because obviously I haven't covered it. So I was going to do a tier list the other day, and I couldn't think of what to tier list, so I just kind of didn't do an episode, and I just kind of waited for this to see if I could do it. But thankfully, I managed to do it, and this obviously episode is covering this week. But as I don't know what I'm doing yet next week. I know me and Connor obviously have been talking about the Game Awards one. That should be coming up in the next few weeks. I'm just waiting on them to actually drop the date for the nominations, because I know they usually, I swear, going off memory of the past couple of years, it's usually a Monday that they drop all the nominations. So I don't think it's going to be next week. So more than likely be the week after, or some point in the next 2 weeks after that. So within the next 3 weeks, I reckon they'll drop them. We might not do it straight away. We might not do it the week it comes out. It might be the week after we do it, because obviously it's just trying to get me and Connor to sit down and actually record it, which obviously our best bet would be a Sunday. So more than likely, if they drop it, say, well, I'll use this as an example, if they drop it Monday coming up, then we probably wouldn't cover it then till the following Friday. So it wouldn't be that Friday that week, it would be the Friday the week after that. But obviously when they actually drop the nominations, I'll actually discuss it with Connor a bit more, because at the moment we've discussed it and said, yeah, we're going to do it. We don't know what the fuck the nominees are going to be. We don't know what the fuck we're going to vote for. But at the moment we're just waiting on seeing what they actually going to nominate, because this year for gaming has been pretty ass. Not going to lie. Next year it'll be fucking good though, because there's some really banger of games out next year. So yeah, obviously we're locking it in. We just don't know exactly when we're going to be doing that. So in the meantime, I'm going to try, because I know I'm sitting there with Alex in the next couple of days. So I'm going to try and maybe do another podcast with him for next week. But one of those things where we'll see when it actually comes, when it comes to that day, if I actually get on early enough to record the podcast before the live stream. So yeah, we'll see how it goes over the next few weeks. But other than that, I do hope you've enjoyed this episode, and do hope to see you next time. Goodbye.
If you like what you've seen, don't be afraid to throw us a little like and subscribe. That's always very appreciated over here. And well, I'll see you on the next video.